Hey, Gina, thank you so much for being here today. We're so grateful that we get to interview you. I would love if you could introduce yourself.
Thank you, Courtney, for having me. I'm looking forward to our conversation. So, my name is Gina Mundy, and I am an attorney from Michigan. Um, I specialize in childbirth cases. Most people do not know what exactly that is, but basically, during the birth of a child, something goes wrong, whether it's a mistake, it's a complication, and baby is not born healthy, um, or in some cases, baby may pass away. And in some very sad cases, I've had where mom has passed away. So, as the attorney, so my job is then to come in and look at the care that mom and baby received and find out what went wrong, why, and more importantly, what should have been done different so baby would have been born alive or would have been born healthy, or mom would have been around to, raise her baby. So those questions have taken me across the United States many times, meeting with different doctors, delivery teams, hashing out every aspect of labor and delivery, all of the decisions that are made, and whatnot. So I took that experience of over 20 years then, and that's when I wrote my book. It's called A Parent's Guide to a Safer Childbirth. So the reason I wrote the book was to help families, I should say, prevent these mistakes and complications from occurring in the birth of their children, so they can have a healthy baby. So basically, instead of getting involved after a mistake has been made, now I'm getting involved before childbirth, to help prepare parents again. So, to make sure these mistakes and complications I've seen for over 20 years just don't happen during the birth of their baby, because when human error or preventable mistake, takes a precious life, it's the family, it's almost like they can't recover. It's very difficult.
Amazing. I would love if you could dig into more about what your book is about.
Oh, sure. So I set it up very simple. So chapter one are all of the lessons that I've learned from the childbirth cases. So whether it's a lesson maybe from the families, or it's a lesson from the doctors or the medical experts, I then list all of the different lessons, that are really good information for parents to know. And actually, it's so important. You can download a copy of it, chapter one, on my website, ginamundy.com. I know at the end of your show, we go over all that fun stuff. But I give kind of this course of action that families can take to help get ready for that big day, to make sure these mistakes and complications don't happen. So then each lesson is then a subsequent chapter. So let's say, if I had, for instance, understanding that in these like childbirth cases, there are reoccurring facts and issues. So, chapter 11, top 10 reoccurring issues and facts that parents need to know, that occur in childbirth cases, so they can have this heightened sense of awareness. Um, so yeah, so basically all of the lessons, each chapter then elaborates on each lesson, and then I try to give guidance to, the different families. Like, if this happens during your labor and delivery, this is what you need to ask. This is what you need to think about. This may be what you need to do. So that's basically, how the book is, set up, for parents. But, like I said, a good starting point, even if you don't read anything else in the book, if you're expecting a baby, or you're an expecting grandparents just love the book. So chapter one will definitely help guide you. And then if you feel like you need to have, um, you know, or you want to see what I elaborated on in other chapters, then that's, probably getting the book.
Love that. What inspired you to write your book?
So my niece, um, was pregnant, and she was about to have, the first baby of our next generation. And she went into the hospital to deliver her baby, and I was 1,100 miles away. and, it'd been kind of a dicey labor, and, it had been long. So then my phone rang, and, um, and we thought we were going to get news that Sam had a girl and she's healthy and everything's great. And it wasn't. It was my sister screaming hysterically on the phone, the baby crashed, the baby crashed. And, my family was around me, my kids, my husband, they could hear her. It was awful. And I ran out to my porch, and I had to sit there and I had to listen to her cry. And, I went from almost like a legal analysis, because what had happened, was almost like what happens in my baby cases. But then I went from this legal analysis to almost like a human analysis. And, I was like, oh my gosh, this is how the families feel in the cases. It's like this moment of, oh my gosh, I was like emotionally almost connected to these families. Like, this is how they feel. And it's a feeling of helplessness, and you're scared, and no decision now is going to change the past. And so luckily, it took about 20 minutes, but we did get word that the baby was going to be okay. And then all of a sudden I'm like, oh my goodness. And then I immediately started thinking of my kids. My niece is like one of my kids, and I was 1,100 miles away. Not that I think I would have changed anything, but still I was really far from her, and it scared me. So I started to think of, maybe that day when my kids, give birth, what if I'm 1,100 miles away from them? So, that realization kicked in, and I'm like, I know stuff, because how I would prepare my children as a childbirth attorney, is much different than how any other family is gonna, prepare for childbirth. When your mom is the childbirth attorney who has seen all the mistakes and complications for over 20 years, I almost feel sorry for my kids. So I'm just going to teach them a lot more that they need to know, not only if in the event I can't be, at their bedside. Anyway, so I started writing. I went from attorney to author. And I started writing everything that I had learned and everything that I believe parents should know to help prevent these mistakes. And it took thousands of hours and 14 months, waking up every day, 3 a.m., working through the night. I go to bed about 7. But yeah, just to get all of this information down. So now the rest of the world, because what I know about childbirth and what I believe to be, the most important parts are now in this book. So now, not only, do my kids have the benefit of me, but hopefully, other people who want to be prepped for childbirth by a childbirth attorney, now can be.
Love that. And that kind of flows into our next question of, when you were writing your book, who are you thinking of when it comes to who your book is for?
Oh yeah, that is easy. Okay, so I had my avatars are my kids, and they have different personalities. I'm the one who's very quiet and passive, and I have the strong aggressive personality, and she'll rip your head off. My son, he's 9. I think he's like in between. So I would have them, and I'm like, okay, so I would say, what do they need to know if I am not here? And how can I communicate it to all 3 of them where they're going to get it? So, it was definitely, it was interesting, but I would go through basically like I was sitting and talking to my kids. Like, if it's about your delivery team, if it's about the baby's heart rate, if it's about the most common fact in a legal baby case, that means if you're doing Pitocin, this is what you need to know, because Pitocin is a drug that induces labor. It's literally in most of my cases. So the Pitocin, so I would just sit down and, like, I'm talking to my kids, and you have to be very direct, especially these days. They're younger, they're on their phones. So you lose them after 2 sentences if you don't keep them interested. And then it's also my kids. So if I'm not around, I had to make sure I solved every single issue in the book. So nothing can be hanging. They have to be guided very clearly on, what mom would want them to do in the event that something, occurred, or, there was a decision to make or something like that during, the birth of their kids.
Love that. How long have you been writing and what made you really sit down and start?
That's even a better question. This was in the book and my editor took it out. And so March 2021 was my niece's scary birth of her baby, where the baby was okay. It's actually the introduction to the book. Great. So I'm a partner in a law firm. I'm raising 3 kids. My husband is a very busy business owner. We're busy. So great. I wanted to write a book. It's awesome. When am I going to do it? So I went about 2 weeks after that, after the birth of Amelia. She's in the book. And went about 2 weeks, and I'm thinking, well, right. So it was a Saturday morning, it was about 11:22, and I was on a treadmill. Don't ask how, but I smashed my hand on the side rail really hard and busted my hand. And I went to an orthopedic surgeon. I mean, I had 4 people look at x-rays and they were like, "What did you do?" Like everybody was they'd never seen a break like this. It was the most just random break. Anyway, I had an awesome orthopedic surgeon and she said, "Listen, if you don't move your hand for 6 weeks," she's like, "I'm going to cast you." She's like, "Do not," but my fingers still stuck out. She's like, "You are not to move your hand for 6 weeks." And she's like, "Then we'll see if then maybe you won't need surgery." And I was just terrified of surgery. I don't want surgery. I hate surgery, whatever. So all of a sudden, work was done for 6 weeks. Oh, no more dishes, no more cooking, no more cleaning, no more laundry. It was awesome. And no more work. So all of a sudden, I'm like, holy crap. And I had all this time. And I'm like, so I'm a lawyer, because it was my right hand at that I couldn't use. But lawyers dictate. So I started dictating my book. And, I fixed it with my left hand. But I just started dictating and getting the content down. And then once my hand started to heal and I could go back and fix it a little bit, faster, whatever. But yeah, no, 2 weeks after that, the birth of Amelia, I busted my hand and couldn't move it. And that was it. So I would dictate my book and walk. That's all I did.
Love that. Well, not that you were hurt, but love that
I
you
know.
overcame it. Um,
Well, the owner of the gym calls me. So this is the next day, and it's at that point I had X-rays. He calls me. His name's Pete. I hope he listens to this because he's awesome. Orange Theory in Vero Beach. Pete calls me and he feels awful, and he's just a genuinely good guy. And I was standing outside of a store. It was my daughter's 18th birthday, April 4th. Um, so he was like, "I'm just so sorry this happened to you." And I remember saying, "Listen, something really good is going to come from this. I can't tell you what that is right now, but something good is going to happen. This is just too weird." This is my whole life is now stopped. It's okay. It's okay. And to this day we still laugh about it. I was just with him last week talking about it at the gym, and he's read the book, and he's one of my biggest advocates. But yeah, that's it was interesting.
Love that. What was your schedule like when you were writing a book?
Yep. So 3 a.m. So basically, I did have to go back to a real life, and I did have to cook and clean and take care of kids again, and all that fun stuff. So I had to give stuff up. So I made my priorities. Family is my priority. My kids, my husband. Cleaning my house is not. So that's bad. Social life out. And then it's working. I have to work. I know I have to. I mean, I really truly enjoy, my job. So I just gave up what I could. And like I said, I make dinner and then I go to bed 7. I am in bed by 7 p.m. This morning I was up at 2:30. Because I still have to do this. I don't know if you know this. I didn't realize it, but they tell me that writing the book is only 10%, And then getting it out there is 90%. I almost broke down. My poor son, he was crying in front of me saying, Mom, please come back to us. And I'm like, what? I'm like, I thought the writing the book was the hard part. And they're like, no, Gina, now you have to tell people about it. I'm like, what? And I won't forget that moment. But yeah, so I still continue right now. I get up in the middle of the night, but instead of writing my book, I'm just doing things like maybe booking a podcast with you, or, just trying to get that book out there so, other people have access to it. And then I promised my 9-year-old that I would stop doing these crazy hours in this crazy life after Christmas. So he said that's what he wants for Christmas. He wants his mommy back. So his normal mommy. So that's, I used to before that happened, I was like, homeschooling him and stuff like that. So it was it was a lot of time. It's still a lot of juggling, but yeah.
Love that. What do you need in your writing space to help you stay focused?
Oh, that was easy. Um So when I started writing the book for the first 3 months, I cried every single morning. Um, what I've seen for 20 years with babies passing away, moms, what I've had to hear, listen to, talking with the families, sometimes mom will carry an urn with her, like with her baby in it. I mean, it's just, or if the baby lives for a year and then passes, it's just, it's awful. And I didn't realize I even needed any kind of therapy, but writing that book, just going back through these cases, where are these families and whatnot, just it all came out every morning. And then after 3 months, there was like this clarity. And then that clarity, it was like thinking of these families, it was like this, I don't know. It was like it just fueled me just to get up and write. It wasn't, and once I started writing and I knew that what I know from the last 20 years can help families have a healthy baby, that was it. But it was just going back, I think, and just remembering these families. And in the acknowledgement of my book, the very last page, I wrote to the families and I'm like, I cried 3 months, like every day. And I cried for you and I prayed for you. And I just want to let you know that, you know, sorry, I still get upset. Um, that their stories fueled me every day to write this book, and that my hope is that other families never have to go through what they did. So it wasn't so much something in my office that helped me write. It was just remembering these families and trying to make sure that no other family experiences what they've had to go through, because you're never the same ever.
Amazing. What is your favorite writing snack and drink?
Coffee. I had almost stopped drinking coffee, and then I started writing. I was up to like 2 pots a day. I had to go to decaf. It's so bad. Coffee all day long. And then your audience is going to think I'm so weird. Like coffee and protein shakes. And then I have like little snack bars that are like peanut butter chocolate. So I would eat my little, 130 calorie snack bar with my protein shake, and then pound some coffee. And oh, yeah, that was an easy one.
Love it. What type of books do you personally enjoy reading?
Oh, geez, self-help books. I have an issue. I'm one of those people. I'm like, I'll never be good enough for anything. This book is going to make me awesome, whatever. It's funny. I'm pushing 50, so I think I'm getting away from that mentality a little bit. Just because, I've been through so much. But no, I love, you give me a self-help book, I'll read it.
Love that. Are there any books or authors that inspired you to become a writer?
I'm thinking, I love books. Um, but I think that event with my niece is just that was like that one point in time where like my life changed, listening to my sister hysterically crying, connecting with the families, thinking of my kids. and whatnot. I wish because I'm thinking, I'm like, I've read so many great books, but I don't know if I could really contribute my, desire to be an author to any of them. So yeah, sorry about the long pause, but I'm like, I struggled with that one for a second, but that's my final answer.
No worries. Love that. What books did you grow up reading? Did you have an all-time favorite?
Danielle Steele, her books, for sure. That those are my, high school years when I knew everything. So I didn't have to read self-help until college. so, so, and then yeah, I think it's just like all the Danielle Steele books I used to read, but yeah, that those are probably there's probably more. But you're taking me back to my childhood. Childhood, I'm like, I think that totally stuck out. But back then they were like, stay out of like 1 hour of TV a day, there's no cell phones or anything. So yeah, reading, I did like to read. I like to go up north in northern Michigan and read.
Love that. On the other side of that, now as an adult, what are your favorite series or authors that if they come out with something, you automatically grab it?
Robert Kiyosaki. I love his Rich Dad Poor Dad book. Um, he's I just, sometimes when you read a book, the author connects with you. Um, and he just, I don't know, his writing style is just really easy for me to understand because I've had a couple self-help books and I'm like, okay, I think this is good, but they're taking like a long time to get to the point. So it was funny. My husband years ago, he was like, I think if you take personality tests, I can communicate with you better. And I'm like, what? Oh, fine. So I take this I take a bunch of personality tests so he can communicate with me better. And apparently you have to speak to me very directly, very directly, and just give me what I need to know. I don't want to know anything else. And so he does that, with his books. Or if you're going to tell me something, it has to be a cool story. So that's otherwise I'm out. I'm not going to be there.
Love that. What would you tell someone just starting out with reading again?
Oh, just make it somewhere relaxing where make it like special. So I've had obviously for the past, where we're at now, it's 14 months to write a book, 3 months out, 4 months, almost 2 years, I guess. And I haven't had a lot of that time to sit and read. So when I do now, I make it really special. So we had gone camping and I got my camping hammock and I connected it to a couple trees. I got a little pillow. It was kind of cold. So I got a blanket. I had, all my fun like snacks and I just curled up with my book and I'm like, I never want to leave this spot. It was just awesome. But just if you're starting to read, make it something special. Just don't go sit on your couch in the corner and read. Get cozy by a fire. Go outside under the palm trees. Go to the ocean. Listen to the ocean and read, or water, or just make it so it's a whole like relaxing, awesome event.
Love that. On the other side of that, what would you tell someone just starting to write their own book?
Just write. Just don't stop. Keep writing because what you initially will write, it may not even make it into the book, but it's going to help you create the book. So I would write so what I wrote at the beginning, a lot of what I dictated, like the general stuff was there, but a lot of that went out. But it was those words that I used then to create the other content that probably was the most important. Because especially if you're writing a book and you're doing something where you're creating something new. I was taking 20 years of experience and trying to break it down in a way that won't scare parents, that's very direct. This is what you need to know, still make them, happy, make them want to read the book. So, it's hard and it's a process. So what I may have written at the beginning, a couple of things, I've gone back and looked at it and I'm just like, whoa, it would have probably scared the crap out of somebody. So, you just have to start and it will all come out. And then you'll get to a point where you're almost done or you almost got it. And then then there's the editing and all that stuff. But just right, wake up every single day. Oh, and another thing I think is very, very important. I've talked to other writers about this. When you wake up in the morning, your brain is fresh. It should be, at least if you went to bed on time. Get on a schedule, and my alarm doesn't go off at 3. My alarm goes off at 3:10. So my body wakes up normally between 2:30 and 3. If I'm exhausted for some reason, my alarm is my backup. But when you do that, I think that you're keeping your brain fresh when you're on a schedule and you write better. So I write better in the morning, and then by the end of my day, I'm half dead. I've tried to go back and write. I can't do it. I have an author right now who's struggling to write a book, but she can't, because of her schedule, she can't write it until the end of her day. And I'm like, I would be struggling too. I'm like, is there anything you can do to try to at least write for an hour? Another thing is, like, the first 2 hours of my day is my best writing time. I get into hour 3, hour 4. I would be a little bit harder for me. But yeah, you can write the first 2 hours of your day. You will be sitting pretty.
Love that. What's one thing that people are generally surprised to find out about you?
Oh, that's a great question. Um, I'm actually a very silly and funny person. That seems to shock people, and I don't know why. I'm in my job, I'm pretty serious. I'm obviously, my family and my friends know me. I've actually chilled out a little bit from writing the book, being on podcasts. I try not to be all business, but I've always been a very silly and funny person. And maybe it's, as the trial attorney with high exposure cases, partner in a law firm, people are they can be a little judgmental. I'm also blonde and all that fun stuff. So I that was a those are characteristics of myself that I've typically tried to kind of keep to myself until I've gotten to know somebody, and then it's game over once you can break through my wall. Actually, I'm doing better. Like, I've been, even on this podcast, a little bit more myself maybe than, if I was, sitting in my office and, talking to clients or something.
Love that. Is there anything you would like to say or add?
Yeah, I think for any parents out there, or expecting grandparents, um, family members, or even just close friends, this is, I think, a very important topic, and a very, you know, um, but it's a very important topic for new parents to learn about before going into childbirth, because I feel like many times, new babies coming, and mom and dad are like, oh, the nursery, where are we going to put the nursery? What color are we going to paint the nursery? Cribs, strollers, cute outfits. Oh my goodness, how much time are we going to take off work? But hold on, you got to get to that point, and you got to prepare for the big day so you can take baby home and enjoy all of those things that you're planning for. So preparing for childbirth is, again, you're talking to a childbirth attorney, is, one of the most important things that expecting parents can do. But a huge reader of my book is also expecting grandparents. And that would make sense because I wrote the book to, make, yeah, as a, one day grandparent, I wrote the book for my kids. So I would have, healthy grandkids. So I don't know why it shocks me that the expecting grandparents keep buying my book and reaching out. So, Yeah, just leave it. Just make sure when you're getting ready for baby that you're prepared to make those important decisions. So because I don't know if I said it yet, but in many of the cases, these families are seriously one decision away or mere minutes from a healthy baby. So being prepared for that powerful moment when you get to hold your baby for the first time, and it's the beginning, it's the start of, your big part of your life. You never stop being a parent.
Love that. Where's the best place for readers to find your book? I know some readers love signed copies. Is that an option? And the best place to connect with you?
GinaMundy.com, GinaMundy. And if you email me, I'll give you a signed copy. I'll send one out. So, um, on that website is also chapter one, which is a downloadable version of my book. And it is free. You don't even have to give me your email address, but it's definitely something every, expecting parent or expecting grandparent should read. Right now, I also have chapter 7 up there, Baby Advocate. I don't know how long that one's going to stay up there, but I had in another podcast, we were kind of having fun. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to put chapter 7 up there too. Pretty soon, like the whole book's just going to be on my website, downloadable. But I also have a childbirth blog that I've started for any information I think can kind of supplement my book that's important for parents. So it's a really good resource for expecting parents or expecting grandparents. And then on the website you'll see like a link to Amazon. So right now the best place to buy my book is Amazon. So you can click on that link, it takes you to Amazon. If you go to Amazon, you can type in my name, Gina Mundy, or you can type in A Parent's Guide to a Safer Childbirth. But other, I don't know what's going on with the marketing of other pregnancy books, but sometimes if I put my name in, there's the other pregnancy books pop up first. So I think they're marketing using my name on Amazon. So you may have to scroll down. So just keep that in mind, but you can always default to GinaMundy.com, and that'll take you to a direct link to Amazon.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for being here today. We're so grateful that we got to interview you. We'll be sure to drop those links in the show notes. That way everyone can find you. And again, thank you so much.
Thank you, Courtney, for having me. I appreciate it.